Hey there, it's Jordan with Status Coup. We are in Charleston, West Virginia. It is hot due to the climate inferno. The media is calling it a heat wave. I call it the climate inferno. We do have a little fan here outdoors, so you might be seeing me lean forward a little bit during this interview because it's hot. But this is part of our economic hellscape reporting tour where we've started in Pennsylvania, did some reporting there on crazy prices, low-income folks being evicted from their homes. We went to Trump country in Altoona, Pennsylvania, spoke with working people about inflation and the high costs. Then we went to Ohio, spoke with folks in Cleveland, Akron, including people currently houseless. And then we made our way to West Virginia, where we've been speaking with people that are really hurting in President Manchin's backyard. And I am here with Pam Garrison, West Virginia native, and member of the Poor People's Campaign. And we've spoken before, and you are one of those folks really fighting the good fight on multiple levels against the Republicans here, against the Democrats in D.C. You've had some run-ins with Manchin yourself, but before we get to Manchin, let's talk about you, your family, your friends. Gas is through the roof, food is through the roof, electricity is through the roof, yes. Rent, all that. How have you been dealing, and folks you know?
Struggling just like everybody else. Jordan, I am with the Poor People's Campaign, but I speak for myself. I don't speak for them, but I am part of the movement that I believe in. And that's what I've been trying to get people to do, is to join in the fight, because I think that's part of the problem, is that the American people has been too silent, too complacent, and it's gotten to the point where we have no choice. We just about lost our democracy. We're watching the trials and the truths come out about all of that. We can't let that happen again. And this honor system between our officials, there's no honor between thieves. We need some safeguards against this happening again against us. This inflation, we know, I've been fighting this for 3 years, and I keep hearing, anytime there is anything for the people, you're going to hear the buzzwords. You're going to hear inflation. You're going to hear recession. You're going to hear filibuster. You're going to hear compromise. But you don't hear none of them when they're handing. During the rescue package, they were giving billions to the military that didn't even ask for it. But did the military give that to their men? No, I've been in fight for 15 rallies with their wives fighting for a living wage, because they're not making enough to live, and we know that. Who's getting at the Pentagon? Their contracting buddies. It ain't our poor old soldiers that are out here, the ones who's on the front lines, just like our poor cashiers, store clerks, everybody else that kept this economy going. That was the essential workers, until they wanted a living wage, until they wanted to have their health care paid for if they got sick. No, none of that, but we got to keep that engine going. We got to keep that engine going. And this inflation is nothing but consolidating the money. We have got the 1% that's got the majority of the money, and we've got none. You might as well say we've got none. We're robbing Peter, paying Paul, servicing each other, just barely trying to make it survive. We can't. And now we know what inflation is. We've lived it. We're the ones who suffer through it. This is so they can cut programs. They can raise up unemployment and lay people off and don't pay them a living wage. We know their little game. I lived it through Reaganomics in the 80s. This little game they've played with us. Anytime that the people rise up, start demanding a living wage, start demanding that the rich pay their fair share, that if you're going to rob our resources, you're going to use our labor, then you should invest back into our country, back into our people. You should have to pay your fair share, just like the minimum wage worker that you won't give a living wage to is the ones who's carrying this country. The middle class has no representation. You just might as well say they just use them in the middle for the political football that they do.
Well, it's interesting. It's interesting you brought this up, because you see headlines on CNBC, the media. Larry Summers, who used to be Clinton's economic guy, he used to be Treasury Secretary, worked for Obama too. He says we need to increase unemployment. We need to lay off 10 million people to tame inflation. The Federal Reserve is increasing interest rates, 0.75 cents. 0.75%. They say that will help increase inflation. That's going to crush people. There's a lot of these media business folks saying the problem is wages have gotten a little too high. But an Oxfam study showed that the billionaires made several $1 trillion more during the pandemic. Mm-hmm. Their wealth went up $5 trillion during the pandemic, yet they're talking about, well, this inflation, it's because we spent too much money in the CARES Act, that we gave people too much money during COVID relief during a pandemic. It seems odd that their solution for this is lower wages and worse conditions for workers.
See, that's what I'm saying. We knew that was what we were going to be hearing. It's what we always hear, But it's, that little bit, that few $1 billion that they spent to get us through a crisis when our country wasn't even moving, when we lost 1 million people dying everywhere. At that time, we had we didn't even have enough protective gear for our medical staff. My daughter was an ICU nurse. She's an ICU nurse in the COVID units. They were using trash bags. She was wearing and washing out the same mask for weeks. That money and the child tax credit, those few months you gave that and everything, all that's done been gone. And what did we do with it? We spent it. We put it right back in the economy, and the filthy rich got every bit of it right back.
I'd like to ask you, because I spoke with folks in Morgantown. The child tax credit was really helping them during the pandemic. It would be really helpful now with gas and food. The child tax credit is gone basically because of Joe Manchin. Joe Manchin, who claims to care so much about high prices for inflation for his constituents. But, if you do a little research, you talk to residents, Joe Manchin, as a coal plant owner, helped collude with the state to increase the electricity rates for West Virginians. So how does he care so much about inflation? And that's why he said, well, I don't want the child tax credit. I don't want these things. It's adding to inflation. But he's done plenty to increase costs for West Virginians.
Let me tell you what I remember when Trump and them and the Republicans pressured Powell to drop the to drop the interest rate. It wasn't but 3 point some. Then they dropped it there. They pressured them down to dropping it to where it's almost zero. They're not paying any interest on anything anyway. And Manchin uses just like they all do. Like I said, that's them words that they use to suppress and oppress the people, And they try to split us. They try to us and them, And it's not a us and them. Republicans, Democrats, we're all out here. We're all working 2 jobs, and now the price of everything is we wasn't making it working 2 jobs. What are we supposed to do? Y'all are the ones up there in leadership. Y'all are the ones that are supposed to be able to solve or do something. But this we went through 13 years of Mitch McConnell and the Republicans. Do nothing, say nothing, stop everything. We have been going through that, even though the Democrats has got 1 senator more. It's not been that way. It has still been the extremist. Everybody in our government panders to the extremist instead of listening to the 75% of the rest of us out here and acting like we don't matter and our voices they don't hear. And that is why we are standing up. We are sick and tired of being ignored. We are sick and tired of being blamed for what they do, or their inactions and their actions. And the people aren't the problem here. And we have watched this problem grow and grow. And all it would have took was just a couple of percent of the Jeff Bezos and the Rocket Mans and all of them to pay a little bit of their taxes and invest in the United States and do the Build Back Better, which would have helped disabled people, give them some help in their homes, some care workers. It would have, it wasn't nothing extravagant. We wasn't asking for the moon. People, if they were sick, child care. I mean, just little things that would have helped our economy and lifted us up so much. And this inflation is not our fault. They took and they are price gouging us. We just had a bill up there that would have held them accountable and been against them price gouging. Manchin and every one of them, the Republicans, every one of them voted against it. Oh, let them just keep price gouging you. Just let this system just keep a-rolling. We are sick of the cradle to the prison systems. We are tired of these old systems. That is why we're working. You see this, since our June the 18th, we had 150,000 people show up, 1 million online that joined us. Poor People's Campaign that came together and said no more. We are organizing to the polls. Me and in West Virginia, our people, we have been joining other groups because us in different little corners, they're not hearing us. It's going to take all of us joining into one mighty voice. And that's what I've been working on. I've been going to other organizations, things I'm putting in there. I'm with them. I want them with me. I've been tabling, trying to get people registered to vote because that is what's happened. In West Virginia, people lost hope. They just felt downtrodden. They didn't see no way out. Nothing was changing. They just lost hope. And we have got to let them know. I'm working in the Democratic Party. I've been one of the reformers helping in the Democratic Party. I'm working on the inside and the out. And that's what it's going to take. And I need people to join us. I need you to get your families out to vote. I need you to help get felons that can vote now. They can vote now in West Virginia. Get them registered. Educate them. Get your high schools. Get them 18-year-olds in here, because our planet burning up, that's their future. That's the most valuable resource we've got is our young, and they just keep cutting them. They devalue and don't respect our teachers. They treat them like trash. And them ladies you was talking about in Morgantown, they highlighted the need of what they've done. They've just crammed our kids into schools with one or two teachers trying to do all these. They can't get the individual help that they need. The disabled are all just clumped into one class, not what their special needs are. We have not invested in our education. We have not invested in our schools, in our kids. But yet my governor's got one of the biggest coffers up there that he keeps sitting on like old King Cole. Look what I've got, look what I've done, while the people were out here starving. Out of all that CARES money, he gave a couple $100,000 to a few homeless shelters, to a few food pantries. That's how he helped the poor there. But yet he had his $1 million lottery so he could show his dog's ass to the world. So he could get
Governor Justice is sitting on quite a lot of money that he's not.
Quite a bit of money. And besides, that ain't counting what of our CARES Act money that he's took and he's got just sitting in these departments, not being used. I got a phone call yesterday telling me for a message for my daughter. They didn't approve to keep the kids free lunches and free breakfast going. You'll have to reapply and see if your kids qualify. We can't even feed our kids. There should not be a kid in school that should have to pay for lunch and breakfast. Our prisoners don't. If we can feed our prisoners, we can't feed our kids. I mean, but we can feed them all. We can do all this. We have introduced the third Reconstruction. It's been introduced on the House floor by Representative Lee and Janapal. It needs voted on, brought up. It needs voted on. It needs the House leader, Nancy Pelosi, to bring it up. Let them vote on it. Let them debate it. You know, that has got real solutions to a lot of these problems. That would lift from the bottom up, that would get our economy going. And it is time we invested in ourselves. And Joe Manchin and the rest of them, they keep trying to milk us dry and hold us back and hold their foot on our necks over a piece of coal. Well, the world and technology is rolling on and moving on. And if we don't get rid of these people, I don't care what party they're from. Look at what they're voting. Look at their policies. Look at what they've done. Quit voting for a name. Quit voting for the same old because you don't want to think or look at what's happening. Quit voting for God and guns and start voting for your kids and what's on your table and what's in your pocket. Quit listening to the propaganda and the brainwashing. Like I said, they have dumped the fossil fuel industry, the pharmaceutical industry have dumped millions in here trying to propaganda us, full-page ads in the newspapers, big old one ad on the TV after another, postcards in our mail like an election, you know, trying to propaganda us and get their lie out there and just keep pushing their lies. Well, poor people, we can't compete with that. All we have got is you and ourselves to get out here, and we've got to go protest. That's all we've got. We don't have the money for that kind of media, for that kind of outreach. That's the reason it's going to take all of us joining our resources and our voices together.
Let me ask you. I know you got the vote shirt on and you're trying to register people. There's a lot of folks now saying, you know, trying to work within the Democratic Party or reform the Democratic Party is a fool's errand. The Democrats are saying, just give us 2 more senators and Manchin won't matter anymore. But we've seen under Obama, they had almost a filibuster-proof majority. And all they did was give Obamacare and a couple other minor kind of crumbs. So why do you have such faith that just voting and getting rid of the Manchins or these people will work when the system and the Democratic Party, obviously, I mean, the Republicans are corrupt, obviously, but the Democrats, you know, have become the party of Wall Street, et cetera, et cetera. Why do you have faith that registering, getting people to vote will work?
Well, the Democrats only had the House and the Senate, only had it for 2 years of Obama. And in those 2 years, we did get something we had needed desperately, because I was using an emergency room for my medical. I used home remedies, and my daughter ended up with pneumonia because we didn't have health care when she was 3 years old, and she ended up with lifetime bronchitis because of it. In just 2 years, we did get health care and, like you said, a few crumbs in just those 2 years. But I tell the rest of them, Manchin matters to us. We're the ones that's suffering under him, suffering from what he's doing. It ain't just y'all. We're the ones living under him. No, he has showed us time and time again. And I'm so sick of hearing conservative and moderate. Dog, you know what that tells me? I'm a sellout. I don't want your titles, progressive, red dog, blue dog, whatever. We are people, we're Americans, and it's time we started looking at it like that and quit trying to make each other the enemy and start looking at who the real enemy is. Start looking at the ones that are trying to sell us out to other countries. Look at the ones who is robbing us blind and using our labor like slave labor.
Well, you know,
but in West Virginia, I have confidence because it's got to start somewhere. And if West Virginia has to be the start to change the whole national, so be it.
Let me ask you also, you said selling out to other countries. The thing that's always really infuriated me, I was at Standing Rock, I've covered other pipelines, you heard all this bullshit. Oh, this is for energy independence. All this oil, gas was being shipped to other countries. We're in the middle of a climate inferno Russia invaded Ukraine, even though that was only about 4 or 5% of our oil was from Russia, I thought all these pipelines and all of this stuff that Joe Manchin's been pushing is for energy independence. But as soon as there was a war abroad, suddenly prices have to go up. I mean, it all seems like bullshit. That's why I call them the fossil fuckers. This oil isn't even for American use. It's all been shipped and sold offshore to enrich these fossil fuel companies. Meanwhile, Manchin, I mean, he when he was open to the climate package, he wanted to carbon capture these plants, which is wasteful, very expensive. He says we need fossil fuels. I guess maybe he'll change his mind when his yacht's on fire. Could you kind of talk about the lie of energy independence? Because all these projects have been for these companies to sell oil to offshore, not for use here.
Exactly. It all goes to a world market, but they use that propaganda. Oh, let's get, American made, all this. And no, it all goes onto a world market. They're the ones who control it. So this is price gouging that they've been doing to us. And like I said, well, our government, instead of protecting us from it, they're just like our our Public Service Commission here in West Virginia. They join right in with them. They just join in the band and start helping them. It just blows my mind. That is what, in West Virginia, we've got water everywhere you look. We're in the mountains. We've always got a breeze. We've always got wind. We were the energy leaders at one time with coal. We could be the energy leaders now with green energy. We could be making solar panels and all this. There is a few that J.B. Christensen up north, he's got his own solar company, making them and installing stuff. The little ones are trying to break through. But you've got the monopoly. Like I said, we've got our representatives, instead of trying to help them and trying to promote it, they're filling their pockets from it. And as long as we have got that in there, as long as we've got a coal baron for a governor, as long as we've got a coal baron for a senator, as long as both our senators, they're both getting filthy rich off of these old systems. That's the reason none of them want to change them and fix them. They're all in the cahoots. They even made it legal that they could do insider trading and not be held accountable for it. Now, how mind-blowing is that? They get information none of the rest of us get, but they can legally do that now. That's what I'm saying. They always talk about do away with regulations. Well, most regulations are to protect us. It's to keep them from poisoning us. It's to keep them from robbing us. It's to keep them from doing the things that they are doing, criminal things.
Well, Pelosi's husband always seems to be buying stock right before legislation linked to that stock.
That's what I'm saying. And they've made this stuff legal. We have got to get back into reality. We have got to get back engaged and involved. We have sat back and let the extremists and the corporations buy our courts. They're buying our policies. They're bought our politicians. The only thing we have is our vote. That's why they're working so hard to try to manipulate it, to steal it, to do whatever they can, because they know that's our power, and that's what we've got. And when that sleeping giant wakes up and the people come together, that's when we'll see change. And we will save our country. The people will do it. Not a president, he ain't a god. He's a man. The Congress, they're not doing their job. We have had a do-nothing, stand-still Congress for 20 years. That's why we're in the shape that we're in. We have got all the other industrial countries are running off, leaving us, because we're sitting here fighting each other over a stupid gun and God. Well, I don't want run by religion. My founding father said separate them two, because when you oppress and you suppress people with the religion. We don't want that. We are democracy. I want rule of law back. I want justice. I want people, no matter if they're sitting in the Supreme Court, that can be impeached, to the president, to the Congress, I don't care who they are. We need to start holding these people accountable. And we need to start making our parties, our national parties, hold them accountable too. I agree with them yesterday. Chuck Schumer needs to grow him some and tell Joe Biden, if you're going to keep taking you're going to your Republican campaign contributions, and you're going to just try to sabotage our whole agenda and everything, then it's a conflict of interest for him to have all the stock, to be in control, president of the coal in West Virginia, and then over the energy up there. That's a conflict of interest, and it should not be. It should not be. And Chuck Schumer and Jamie Harrison need to start doing their job, holding their elected officials accountable.
Well, I mean, in other countries, we would call it a banana republic or a very corrupt system. If a coal baron who owns a coal plant, The Intercept's reported he's made $5 million from this coal plant while being a senator, to then chair the committee that regulates energy. I mean, it's beyond a conflict. It's corruption.
It's corruption. Just call it like it is. Like I said, like the insider trading, we've watched a lot of corruption. That's why it's time to clean house.
And let me ask you, we hear in the media, the national media, maybe the local media too, that, people like Manchin, well, they're just voting based on their state. Trump won West Virginia by 40 points, and he's got to vote, he's a moderate because West Virginia is conservative. I don't know. I've been to West Virginia. This is my third time. I've spoken with conservatives too. Maybe folks have different views on cultural issues, but on economics, I know a lot of conservatives that want to build back better. I know a lot of, more right-wingers. They might cling to their guns, but they certainly want paid sick leave. They certainly want health care. They certainly desperately need $15 minimum wage at this point is not enough. Can you talk about that? Because it seems to me that's bogus that he has to do this because, West Virginia went for Trump. Well, Trump actually sold a lot of BS, but it sounded like economic populism to the people.
Trump was a calm man. He'd tell you anything you wanted to hear. If you wanted to hear he could grab the moon, that's what he'd have told you. He came here, I'm going to bring back your coal, just like they all do. We done heard that lie so many times, that propaganda, and that's what that you're talking about is. That's more of that propaganda that they keep trying to tell us, that and I'm not against guns. I'm not against hunting guns and stuff, but with 1 billion people, I mean, we need some common sense stuff. 18-year-olds going into shooting up kindergartens and stuff. This is unacceptable. We can do better than this, and we can have some common sense about this stuff. We don't have to be extreme one way or the other. That's what I'm saying. They try to use that propaganda of the extremists to say it's all of us. But when we were fighting for the Build Back Better, there was Republicans that was going on TV telling my senator to vote for it, but they wasn't on telling more Capito. Where is the fairness there? If that is what you want, then let the people you're putting in office, then make sure they are doing the right thing too. You can't just blame the Democrats what they ain't done or what they can't do when you got a whole party sitting over there blocking and saying no to everything, and they have got no solutions to nothing. Their whole thing is just no, can't do it, can't figure nothing out, can't stop nothing, can't do nothing. I mean, and that's got us to where we are now, and now with this price gouging that they've done with the groceries and everything, you're seeing homelessness go up. You're going back to seeing food pantries the way they were at the beginning when you were seeing the new SUVs in them food lines and stuff. You're seeing kids not be able to afford their rent, having to move back in with their parents, 2 and 3 families to a home. Things like that. And
I've been hearing about people. I spoke with a woman. She was hospitalized for mental health issues a couple years ago. Found a medication that really helped her. She's weaning herself off the medication. She could afford the medication. She can't afford the doctor. You got to go to a doctor 3 times a year to get the refill.
Exactly.
So she's getting off the medication and just hoping her mood is okay.
Well, that's the reason they claim they can't negotiate with the drug companies, that we can't have health care for all, that to where there is more fair systems to where women's health care, abortion is part of women's health care. I know everybody's made a dirty word out of the procedure that women, it's not a popcorn festival, people. We're not lined up going to have fun, like they try to make it sound. My daughter, according to these people and according to the law that is in West Virginia right now, my daughter would have been dead. She's had 2 tube legal pregnancies. The second pregnancy blew out the tube. Her 3rd pregnancy, I was watching her die from her heart failing. She had to have open hearts. She's had 2 open heart surgeries. She's got a mechanical valve. The same time she found out about her heart, she found out she was pregnant. I was watching it suck the life out of her day by day. But according to them, I'm supposed to let my daughter and a fetus that has never took a breath, that is not even formed, die. Because, I'm supposed to let my daughter die because of y'all's opinion or your religion. Old white man's opinion. This is about women's health care. We have problems and we have to have things that they know absolutely nothing about. And I want them to know that a pregnancy, we are not incubators. It affects your mind, your chemicals. It affects so many different things. And you're trying to make little kids go through it that has been raped by their uncles or their neighbors or whatever, disabled women that's been raped. You want to make them go through that. I mean, it is just immoral what they have done. And then Patrick Morrissey, our district attorney, he's trying to get that 100-year-old law to stay, to back. The only reason that the only thing that stopped it was a female judge that just voted to stay it. But they ain't even addressed that. We're back to a 100-year-old law that prosecutes and puts you in prison for 10 years if you have an abortion. I mean, what the courts did without not even no thought to the repercussions of what it was going to do and what was going to happen.
So with your daughter, if this would have happened to her now,
she'd be dead. She'd be dead. Yeah. She'd be dead. And I mean, these extremist views that they're trying to put into laws and into policies is no better than the Taliban. We spent trillions and we've lost, look at the soldiers, the men we've lost and maimed and everything, fighting this same kind of thing that y'all were trying to put on us and make into laws, into policies now. And then you just, and the Republicans, they just get so propaganda, they just get so manipulated that I just keep hoping that the more truths that keep coming out, the more people that stand up, the more of them that'll look at their own kids that are suffering, that'll look at what their own, what's happening that's what's really happening. And this selfishness, this me, the good for all, the better for all, justice for all.
It's also, I think this Republican extremism, which if it's up to them, we're going to be back in medieval times. Yeah. They're able to get away with it because they don't really have an opposition. I think there's a lot of conservatives in West Virginia, elsewhere. Okay, yeah, they're big on guns and all this other stuff. I think if they had a populist alternative, remember Bernie won every county here in 2016. If they had somebody say, we're going to give you universal health care and we're going to fight for it, we're going to give you paid sick leave, we're going to actually spend, we need $10 trillion on climate, not $300 billion or whatever nonsense they were talking about. If they had somebody speaking to the issues that we've been speaking about, I don't particularly think the Republicans would do so great in places like this, because I've met plenty of conservatives that care about these things, economic. Can you kind of talk about, they keep saying, oh, well, this is a Republican place. Maybe it is now, but it wasn't it was a Democratic state for a century. Can you kind of talk about, I think people drift to the right because they don't actually have a populist left economic justice party to vote for.
I agree. And that's why we're having to, not in just in my state, there is a lot of states that are doing the same thing, that are getting in there and saying, we are sick and tired of this, we got to be conservative, we got to be moderate, all this, these name-calling kinds of things. We need our leaders to stand up, to be loud and proud, and to have principles. No, I don't expect my leaders to win every battle, but I expect them to fight like hell to try to get what is good for the people, what is good for good policy, what is going to uplift us, what is going to invest in us. Yeah, you might not get it through, but I'll have more respect for you that you fought like hell for it than that you laid down and compromised and you ended up with us something worse or nothing, you might as well say, But I agree. The Democratic Party, we have to get our voice back. And we have to and these people that is just part of the same, you just might as well say they're all just one big old party up there living on us. They all have to go. I don't care if they're Democrat or Republican. They have to go. We have to have new people. We have to have people that are willing to have morals, integrity, fight, spirit, have principles that you will fight for. There is some principles I have got that there is no compromise on. I want leaders that are that same way, that are going to fight for me, that are going to look out for my back like they're supposed to. We give them these positions to look out for us, to cover our backs, not to join in with the crooks,
Let me ask you, the local media. We know the national media covers two things: January 6th, Trump, January 6th, Trump. I think January 6th should be covered, but other things could be covered too. The local media, everywhere I go, is abysmal. They basically do, we were watching local media last night. Most of it was covering like lemonade stands and fluffy bullshit. Can you kind of talk about the local media? Because, I don't know, it doesn't seem like they're talking to the people like you, focusing on the hunger, the poverty, those things. It seems like they just kind of present a bit of an alternative reality.
Oh, they do. It's like all the protests and stuff. You wouldn't believe how many organizations has had protests, this and that. No, they don't hardly get it. They don't hardly hear about it until a week later. They might put something in the paper about it a week later or something. But the media here, I agree with you altogether. That same old propaganda, like I said, brainwashing almost is that over and over and over, which I'm like you. These things need brought out, they need addressed, the population they need to know. But there's a whole lot of things that the population needs to know. And it happens daily, and life moves so fast, that there's so many things that the populations aren't hearing that's happening, but they do. That's all they hear is the fluffy stuff, and that's the reason I don't think a lot of them realize what other people go through like that. They don't see the people that's getting homeless, out of sight, out of mind, like they were talking about. Well, everything's great. Look, don't everything look just fine? Go 2 streets over and look at the poverty. Look at the people sleeping on the streets. But they don't want to show that, because then we would have compassion. Then we would want something done. Then we would want change.
Last question. Inflation, the gas prices at some point will go down. Food will at some point go down, but that doesn't mean everything's going to be wonderful. People still can't afford to live here. No. What is the minimum wage? Like slightly? $8.75. It's not just the climate inferno threatening lives. People are going to die if they can't afford food, if they can't afford rent, if they're homeless. We were just in Ohio. It's increasing there, everywhere, in increasing heat. You got electricity rates through the roof. People can't afford that. Some of that's because of Joe Manchin hiking Can you kind of just talk about, you mentioned some folks you know that are moving back in with their parents and things like that. Talk about the struggle people are going through here with inflation. Are they going without certain things they need? Are they rationing other things? The stories you know about.
Well, there was 750 people a day dying in the United States before COVID. And a lot of that was from poverty. And, the poverty was already killing people. And now with this price gouging that we've went, I'm like you, I've lived through these, Bush over $5 a gallon through that war, we've went through these. And no, the groceries don't come down. Usually once they get them up, it's just like everything that the corporations do. Once they get the prices up, they don't bring them down. But they don't want to even address the climate issue and even talk about helping people with low-income people, giving them energy assistance to help them with the air conditioning, just like through winter, here in West Virginia. Now, with the climate change and the heat and stuff, they don't even talk about things like that would help people. All right. Justice is sitting on his big old pile up there. He's not done anything with it that would really help our kids help us through our kids through school. That would really help West Virginians. They're struggling right now trying to figure out with this inflation how they're going to buy food and get their kids some school clothes and get them started and get them in school. We've got churches that are putting together backpacks and stuff because a lot of them can't afford them. They give them a $200 clothing voucher and that's it for the year. That's all they ever get to get their kids anything for school.
Who gives them the voucher?
The welfare office, through the welfare office. For the low income and the poor and the low income. And there's no help for anybody else. There's no help for the other people. There's no even talk about any kind of, help for them. And it's going to get worse. This inflation just started. If they don't do something, people are getting sicker, they're getting poorer. And if they have their way and they start doing what they're talking about doing, cut people's jobs. We're not making it now. We didn't have enough people working. It wasn't just a few months ago they were Jim Justice was giving people $1,500 to come here and work for 8 weeks. It wasn't. So how did all of a sudden it go from, well, we ain't got enough people to work, to where we got to lay people off? It's causing inflation. That's the biggest bunch of bull crap. And they think we eat this stuff. They think we're dumb enough and can't figure this stuff out.
Is there a world where you might run against Joe Manchin in 2024?
I would love to. I'd love to debate him. I would love to debate him. You come in, because I sat over 2 years ago with the meeting with Joe Manchin with the Poor People's Campaign. That's when I was fighting for the minimum wage that was in the CARES Act that he pulled out. He tells me, I've got a plan. Don't worry, I got you. I got a plan. I'm going to start out at 11 and I got this plan. Well, that was over 2 years ago. I ain't seen the 11. I ain't seen the plan. I ain't never even heard it mentioned again. Like a dirty word with them mentioning a living wage. But I didn't hear them bellyache one bit. They keep sending trillions and billions to the war. I've seen them save the banks, corporations, the PPE. But my son-in-law, by the time he's a self-contractor, by the time he applied for it, Carol Miller and her 5 car lots that got $1 million apiece, and all the corporations and businesses that got the PPE, there wasn't enough left for the small independent guys. It ran out.
A lot of these bigwigs raided the PPP money.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, they're the ones who they have benefited and robbed. They have gotten it all, and then want to blame us that it's our fault. Y'all got a little $1,200 or $1,400 stimulus check. You're the cause of it.
Well, maybe Manchin's working on his plan in his yacht but he keeps getting interrupted by the people paddling. So maybe he's still working on that plan.
Right. Yeah, just like he's running through trying to run away from him to keep from answering, just like he won't meet with anybody because he don't want to have to explain what he's doing. Because he knows the bull that he's dishing out, ain't none of us buying it. We all know what it is. You're filling your pockets. We see you going to your little fundraisers. We see you buddying up. We've even seen the lobbyists bragging on the TV about both of our senators being their #1 buy-offs. They can fill their pockets and get anything. And yet West Virginia keeps putting these same crooks back in there and expecting a different result. We will never have a different result as long as we got the same old in there that's preaching and pushing the same old trash they have for 20 years.
And one more. If things don't change, let's say you get some new folks in there and they still doing the same old thing, you think there's a future where working people could come together for some type of general strike, some type of economic action? It might have to start out on the local level, but working people saying, you know what, if we don't come in, these factories aren't running, this grocery store ain't running, because a lot of people want that. A lot of people want people to start organizing for economic protest. Obviously, a lot of people can't do that. They're working 2 jobs. If they do that, they're going to be thrown to the streets. Exactly. But what are your thoughts on people coming together, to kind of fight back economically?
Well, right now, like I said, what we have is our vote. We're close to midterms. See how that goes, what kind of representation we have. But if things don't change and we keep on with these extremist views, these extremist policies, the oppression, suppression, but we can't even get them to secure our votes. They act like that's going to be so hard just to, the John L. Lewis Act or the Voting Rights Act, just to secure people's votes and make sure that that we can get to the polls. This kind of extremism. I mean, they can't even agree on that. They can't agree on nothing. Our government hasn't worked, ain't been working. If things haven't changed or we seen something, the Poor People's Campaign will start getting active in September. I think things keep getting worse, keep getting the way they are. I think eventually it is liable to take something like that for the people to actually have justice and to actually have change. I hope we can do it by the elections. I hope we can do it by getting good people in there that are really serious and don't just join in, the old buy-off game. We have to get the dark money out of our politics. The courts has not helped with that. The courts with the Citizens United, that was the worst decision. That was as bad as Roe versus Wade decision. The courts has made one bad decision after another without even any thought to the consequences of what they've done. Or else maybe they did and they were part of it. They'll have to account for that. But I hope we can do it that way and get change. If not, then I think the people are ready could organize something like that from one state, from across the United States. I think we could if it comes to push, comes to shove, I think we could.
Thank you for taking the time to talk to me. The reason we go on the road, and it's not glamorous driving through multiple states or flying places and being on the road, and these stories will not go viral. The media system is designed to bury voices like Pam's. That's why we go on the road, because she's not going to be on CNN. She's not going to be on MSNBC. If she ever gets on them, maybe they'll use a 5-second soundbite. But they're not going to cover these stories because they are literally paid to cover up what's going on. There's 6 multi-billion-dollar corporate conglomerates that own all the media in the United Corporations of America. So a huge reason why we have this corrupt status quo is because we don't have actual media to highlight it, to give a microphone to people like Pam. So that's why we do it. And you know what? We're not going to become rich from this. And frankly, I don't think we should. I think we need to tell these stories, cover things, not when they're breaking, like breaking news, but when they're breaking, like shit's breaking. Society is breaking. The culture is breaking. So please, please, please support us. StatusCoup.com/join. StatusCoup.com/join. You can become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. Makes a huge difference. If you can't, we understand. But if you can, $5 to $10 a month. StatusCoup.com/join. You get to join us for our monthly members call through Zoom, as well as behind the scenes video from the road and other things. So that's StatusCoup.com/join. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching, and make sure to tune in to Status Coup's daily live stream Monday through Thursday at 5 o'clock Eastern Time and Fridays at 4 o'clock Eastern Time.